Apple and Google just did something we honestly didn't expect them to do so, at least so publicly. It has been rumored that Gemini was going to power Apple Intelligence, but once again, that was only a rumor. Until now. So in a joint press release, Apple and Google has confirmed that a multi-year partnership will take place to help power the next generation of Apple Intelligence. So this is including a much smarter Siri that we haven't seen yet, using custom Google Gemini models. And naturally, this is going to raise a lot of questions. So is Apple giving Google access to your data? Is Siri now Google powered? And what does this actually mean for privacy, Apple Intelligence, and the future of AI on Apple devices? So let's break this all down so you know everything you need to know about this major change that is coming to your iPhone and Apple devices at some point this year, most likely. So first, let's be precise about exactly what Apple and Google have said. In their joint announcement, they have confirmed a multi-year collaboration, as well as Google's Gemini AI models will help form the foundations for Apple's next generation of AI. These models will power future Apple Intelligence features, including a more personalized Siri. And this is not a rumor, this is not a leak. Apple and Google have actually put their names on this, and it's out there, as you can see on the screen, showing that this is Apple's strategy for AI, at least at this current moment. But before we go any further, we do need to clear up some common misconceptions about this. So this deal does not mean that Google is getting access to your Apple data. Siri is not being replaced by Google. Apple is not outsourcing AI entirely, and Apple Intelligence is moving to Google's cloud. Apple was very explicit about this, and no, that's not happening. And that leads us to the most important part of the story, privacy. So Apple has gone out of its way to emphasize privacy here, and for a good reason, honestly. According to the announcement, Apple Intelligence continues to run on device whenever possible, and more complex requests are going to use Apple's private cloud compute like they do now. So essentially, Google will provide the AI models and not have access to any user data. Apple will maintain full control over privacy, safeguards, and exclusion. So essentially, in other words, Google is going to supply the intelligence foundation, and Apple is going to control how it's used for their users. And user data is not going to be handed over, and Google isn't seeing your prompts, your questions, or what you're doing with it. Apple remains the gatekeeper here. And this is consistent with Apple's broader AI strategy of privacy first, even if it means partnering instead of building everything from scratch. This deal actually makes Apple Intelligence easier to understand now, too. So if you think of Apple Intelligence as 3 layers, the first layer is going to be the experience. It's what you see and interact with on a daily basis. 2 is the system, the privacy, on-device processing, private cloud compute, and 3, the models, which is where the intelligence comes from. Apple owns layers 1 and 2 completely, but layer 3 is actually the models, is now more flexible because Apple already works with OpenAI and ChatGPT, and now Google's Gemini becomes another option. And this also allows Apple to strengthen their own current foundation models to answer any questions you want and really be in charge and capable of answering any question that you may have as a user, which is something that, Siri might have had to kick out to ChatGPT for, but now using Apple's foundation model built off of Google Gemini, Apple will be able to handle completely, possibly on device, which is going to be so cool. And Apple can even swap, combine, or replace models over time, which is intentional, as Apple doesn't want to be locked into one AI provider. They want to own the platform, not the model. Now, why Apple chose this approach? Because this strategy solves multiple problems at once. First is the speed, as AI is moving so fast. So partnering allows Apple to improve Siri and Apple Intelligence much faster than starting from scratch and building it themselves, which I think is actually a good thing because that'll help Apple catch up in the game. The second is the quality, as Google has some of the most advanced AI research and infrastructure in the world, and Apple knows that. The third is control, and by keeping exclusion, privacy, and UX in-house, Apple avoids becoming dependent on any one company. And finally, future-proofing. If Gemini does improve, Apple benefits. If Apple internal models improve, Apple can shift away quietly and use those. That flexibility is incredibly valuable to Apple as it'll allow them to do what they want. Now, what does this mean for Siri? This is where users will actually feel the change the most on their iPhone. Apple has confirmed that, so Siri will become more personalized to you. It'll be able to understand context better, and it will even improve across iPhone, iPad, Mac, Apple Watch, and Vision Pro. The expectation is on fewer "sorry, I can't do that" moments and fewer public Siri failures, which I think we've all been there. And importantly, if something does go wrong, this is now a shared responsibility. Apple and Google are both have their reputations on the line here. And I think this is something that we do need to focus on for a quick second, because Apple and Google are both reputable brand names, and OpenAI is getting there. But OpenAI is a newer company, and yeah, there can be more mistakes from them, but you wouldn't expect a major mistake from Apple or Google because they have such a long brand reputation of being good companies. So I think this is where Apple's taking a step in the right direction to give users exactly what they want, because Apple has really not delivered on Apple Intelligence just yet. So this also means that commands will not have to be sent out and wait long for a reply. As I said earlier, I am curious though what will happen to those non-Apple Intelligence supported devices, because that means devices like the HomePod, Apple Watch, and a bunch of iPhones and iPads will be left with the old Siri, like they currently have now, that really just doesn't work well at all. But one underrated part of the story is the fact that Apple and Google went public together, announcing this to the world. Because this tells us that this isn't going to be an experimental thing. This isn't going to be temporary, and this isn't something that Apple is trying to hide. They want users to be aware of this. And because both companies are confident enough to put their brands behind it. And that's actually a very big deal. So here's the real headline. Apple didn't give up control, Apple didn't give up privacy, and Apple didn't give up Apple Intelligence. What Apple did was choose the best tools available at the current time while still owning the experience. So Apple controls the platform, partners can power the intelligence, and Siri is about to change a lot. Now, once this update does launch, I do plan on doing a follow-up with the new Siri features when they actually do roll out, so we can see whether or not this partnership is actually going to live up to the promise and change Siri for the better. But thanks for watching, and let me know what you think about this Apple partnering for AI instead of building everything themselves. And I want you to remember that today is a good day to make a great day, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.